Welcome to Accelerate My Practice. So glad you could join me here today. Today, I want to talk about what to do when the sky is falling. And I bring it up because obviously we're headed into turbulent times. I mean, you've got all the politicians or wannabe politicians telling you how terrible the world is and how they have the solution and the other person's a moron. And it creates a lot of uncertainty in consumerism, which could create uncertainty not only with your patients, but with your team and maybe even yourself. So the question becomes, what do you do about it? How do you survive it? And if by chance things are even being challenging, what do you do then? Because now, of course, it adds legitimacy to the story. So one of the authors I'm a big fan of is Simon Sinek. And he wrote this book, Start With Why. And many of you heard me discuss it. But I believe, as Simon Sinek says in his book, that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So fairly recently, a few weeks ago, I'm sitting there chatting with his doctor about his website, and he's wondering why it's not bringing patients to him. And as you read the website, it just had this sterile feel to it. And not that it wasn't colorful like the background here or anything, it was a beautiful website. It was the emotion in the wording that felt sterile to me. And it didn't have anything that would be inspiring to a person reading it to want to come into his practice. And so as we were chatting about it, a good example is I read his bio, and it's all this continuing education stuff. And the challenge is, as you read it, the average patient's like, whatever, I don't really care. I don't understand what that is. Why should I care? And I'm like, flip the order around and put the personal stuff on top. And the reason why I think this is important is, whether you're looking at employees or patients, in your case, customers, I think that you can create and attract loyalty if they know your why. I think let's start with the employee first. If the employee the teammate can't identify with why you're doing things, and all they do is view it as you just want to make money, you don't care about your patients, you don't care about me, the employee, you're going to have people who show up, but they're not going to show up and do a lot in terms of emotional commitment. And the challenge is that anybody, doesn't matter what your business is, you can have the most loyal employee in the world, and the most loyal employee in the world is not going to be as loyal to your business as you are. And I'm not dogging anybody who's listening to this, or my team for that matter. The reality is that the most loyal person to any business is the owner. That's it. And we've all sadly seen this, where someone has an opportunity to make more money somewhere else and they go somewhere else, or whatever the story is. And I think oftentimes the reason why they're leaving really isn't the money, it's somebody else inspired them. They might tell you it's the money because that's an easy excuse, because they don't want to tell you that you don't inspire them. But if you don't, then all of a sudden the differentiator becomes the price. And the same is true of your patients, because from their perspective, they can get dentistry anywhere, right? Dentistry's dentistry to a patient. We know from a clinical perspective, there's a wild difference in dentistry. There's good dentistry, there's bad dentistry, and there's a whole lot in the middle. So the challenge becomes, from a patient perception perspective, it's a lot of P's there, that you can't tell the difference. The patient can't. So your why you do what you do is going to be of paramount importance. So we've got to be very careful to express that to everybody so they know why you do what you do, why your company was born, and why it ticks. And if they don't understand that, your team and your patients, and most importantly, yourself as the business owner, when the sky is falling, you're going to want to just run. And it reminds me of this metaphor I heard once, where this person in front of a crowd holds up this water bottle. And of course everybody's like, okay, Darren, I've already heard the metaphor. Is the water bottle half full? Is it half empty? It's about pessimism and optimism. And the answer is no. My question to you is, how heavy is this water bottle? Is it 12 ounces, 10 ounces, 8 ounces? And really, does it matter? Because let's say it's 12 ounces, right? And I'm holding this thing. Actually, it's probably not even 12. It'd be 4 ounces is my guess, because there's 8 pounds of whatever. 12 ounces we're going with. So 12 ounces is sort of irrelevant because I can hold 12 ounces. But what if I hold this for an hour? How tired is my arm going to get holding 12 ounces after an hour? Or how about after a day? Now I'm holding just 12 ounces, but I hold this thing for a whole day. Not only is my arm going to fatigue, it's going to turn numb, and it's going to start hurting so bad that I can't hold it. And it feels like this pain, this little 12-ounce water bottle, all of a sudden just feels like I'm holding the weight of the world. How about if I hold it 2 days? How much pain and pressure can come from something itty-bitty, 12 ounces in this case, or a pebble in your shoe? Pebble in your shoe is no big deal if you take one step, but if you walk a long ways in it, it's going to really cause some irritation. And I think if you can connect yourself, most importantly as the owner, and your team and your patients to your why, it'll help you overcome stuff like this. Because there's going to be challenging times. I don't know what the outcome of the election is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad for business, for health, for medicine, for dentistry. No clue. No idea at all. But I can tell you challenging times are coming. There will always be a challenging time. And the question becomes, do you have a plan in place to weather the storm? You know, I was chatting with someone just last night who was calling me up, going through a tough time, and he's like, I just don't know. And I'm like, are you committed? He's like, yeah, I'm committed. I'm like, well, you don't sound like you're committed to the change that he's saying he needs to make. And I'm like, he's like, well, no, I'm committed. I'm like, well, then if you're committed, why are you using words like I'll try or maybe or hopefully? Because that doesn't show commitment. You know, rather if you have certainty, you are absolutely certain about what your future holds, regardless of what the weather is. Because, you know, storms come, but does a storm ever last days, weeks, months? No. They come by and they stink and they suck for an hour. They do a lot of damage maybe. And then the question becomes, do you have the perseverance to go out and fix it? And in your business, storms come. And so the key there becomes measuring progress. What are the key performance indicators that you can watch in your business and you can understand so you can weather the storm? And understand that things happen. And is it the end of the world? No, probably not. I mean, we've seen great disasters take place, whether it's tsunamis or tornadoes or hurricanes. And, you know, it really sucks. It destroys a lot of stuff. But does it stop life? And the answer is no. You know, whether it's a forest fire, we had some terrible forest fires here in Colorado a number of years back. And now you go back through those burn scars and they look completely different. The landscape is nothing like what it used to look like. It's a different kind of beauty. Because now instead of great big beautiful forests, you get down and you see beautiful flowers you never would have seen, because before the trees would have choked out the sunlight to where it wouldn't have allowed these flowers to grow. And in some cases, there are the pine cones of some of the pines around here, they have to be exposed to massive heat for them to open up for the seeds to come out and to grow. Nature's got an amazing way of setting the system up to reset itself. Do you have the same things in your business? Do you know what the key performance indicators are that you should be watching daily, weekly, monthly to understand what the trend is in your practice? And do you hold your team accountable to them? I can tell you as the business owner, talking business owner to business owner, the accountability piece is the worst piece of what we do. Because you feel frigid and you're viewed as frigid, cold and impersonal, maybe even a dick for holding people accountable. But you know, I think about my kids. My kids, they're little for sure. So those of you who have older kids, I don't quite understand that yet. But my kids are really little, and so they don't like having rules, but by the same token, it creates predictability for them. I think even worse than having rules and accountability, people starve for certainty. And even if the rules are tough, if they understand them and the rules are always the same, I think you give your team predictability. And that predictability gives them certainty about what their life is. Now, it's uncertain and it's tough when you change the rules, perhaps, or you change the indicators, but that's part of being a business. Because, you know, numbers, as tough as numbers are, those are the language of business. So as you're looking at your business, if you don't understand these numbers and how those translate into health, dysfunction, or anywhere in between, you've got a challenge coming. And you understand health and dysfunction from an oral health perspective very, very well. But I find lots of doctors don't when it comes to their businesses. And it's not that you guys aren't smart people, you're brilliant people, but you just haven't been trained in those areas. And obviously that's part of our job for you. So the question becomes, do you pay attention to them? As our coach is in there telling you what to do you change your behavior, or does it just kind of go in one ear and out the other, and then you just hope it works out? Because I think if you're allowing that to happen, you're setting yourself up for bigger storms and bigger messes and potentially bigger disasters. But if by difference or contrast, you're learning from those lessons and you're learning what's available in all this content and you start paying attention to it, what it allows you to do is take this 12 ounces and put it down. Otherwise, you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders every single day, and it'll wear you out. It'll get heavy. And if you've led your team effectively, you've shared your why with them, you've inspired them, guess what they'll do? They'll take the water bottle for you. They'll take some of the weight for you. If you haven't, it doesn't work. And it becomes a big challenge. So I think if people understand their role in the business and how their role impacts so many other people, the whole team, the patient, themselves, I think if they really understand that impact of their circumstance and how it rolls up into overall performance, it gives them the ability to have the perspective. And it gives them the ability to do something about it. You know, I read an article a while ago about this very topic, and this particular article was talking about gamification of business and how you can take a business and kind of make a game out of it. And I thought it was a brilliant concept because a lot of times when we're in business and the sky's falling, we get emotionally engaged in it and offended and upset. And we never make good decisions when we're thinking that way. But by contrast, if we're looking at this challenge as a game, a video game perhaps, what it allows us to do is depersonalize it a bit and go, you know, I'm really curious. I'm really curious as to how I can solve this, how I can beat it, how I can beat this challenge. And you know, games are interesting because what I'm talking about with all this is how do you predict trends in business? How do you understand what's coming? And if you've ever played video games against like a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old, they'll crush you. And what's interesting about that is how does an 8-year-old destroy someone like me playing a video game? I think I'm pretty smart. Is it their fingers move faster? They got more dexterity? And that's how they beat me because they can just react quicker? How is it that they can do it? And the trick is they've memorized the pattern. They've memorized where there's going to be the bad guy that jumps out with the gun. They know exactly where that person is. They could probably even tell you what they look like. So they're able to anticipate it. And all of a sudden they come around the corner and they know that the bad guy's coming in a second so they can anticipate and shoot. Whereas me, by contrast, who doesn't play enough, is like, I don't know, oh, there's somebody, oh, I'm already dead. And it's too late. So the same is true in business. If you can gamify business, meaning try and predict what's coming by looking at your key metrics and understanding what the trend means and where it leads, it becomes a big game. It becomes a big game that allows you to anticipate what's coming with some degree of accuracy, not 100% by any stretch of the imagination, but with some degree of accuracy. And then when you understand that, it allows you to then do something with it and really understanding how it works. And then anticipation is the key to success. And you get this in dentistry very, very well. You know if a patient comes in with this condition, this is likely to happen. You know if a patient comes in with bite sensitivity, what's probably going on. You know if a patient comes in with hot or cold sensitivity, it's perhaps a different outcome, and you know what those are. You can predict them because you've seen the pattern. You've memorized the video game of hot and cold sensitivity. But have you taken the time to memorize the game of business? Have you taken the time to understand that if I grow my business, if all of a sudden revenue increases $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month, where's the result going to be? Because of course we just think, ooh, it's going to result in more money in my bank. Yay. Well, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe it's going to result in increased AR. That's my usual experience. If you make no plans, you do nothing else different, and you grow your business $20,000, $30,000 a month, guess what it results in? Increased AR, which is not more money in the bank. And it happens because now all of a sudden we blow up the front desk. So what patterns can you see in your life, in your relationships with your team or with your boss if you are the team? What patterns do you see in relationships with loved ones, children, spouses, parents? What patterns do you see in business? There's a pattern to everything. That's the beauty of nature. If you look at a tree, a leaf, there's always a pattern. That's how you can tell what kind of tree it is. Sometimes the leaves alternate like this, sometimes they alternate evenly. And the difference helps you to narrow down which one it is. There's patterns in everything in life. The question is, have you slowed down to start to see the patterns? Or are you just so busy focusing on the 12-ounce little problem that you're carrying around this massive weight that's wearing you down and has you not paying attention to the pattern? Because I think if you put the weight down and then you look at the pattern that's taking place and you realize that perhaps I have not led my team, perhaps I haven't shared and inspired them with whatever it is that is important to me, perhaps I haven't shared that with my patients, perhaps I just haven't looked in the mirror to see the pattern of behavior from myself. My suspicion is if you take the time to slow down and see the patterns, you'll notice the sky's not falling. It's just clouds that came in. And if you wait a little while, they'll blow out too. They won't stay there forever. But it feels like the sky's falling because you're carrying the weight around and it feels like the heaviest thing in the world. My suggestion to you is to take the time to look for the patterns and whatever relationships are around you, start to notice them and start to anticipate them. And guess what'll happen? It'll change your life. I don't care what it is. Doesn't matter what kind of a relationship, business or otherwise, there's a pattern there, I promise. And if you take the time to notice it and figure out how it plays a role in the outcomes you're experiencing, it'll change your business. So I want you to go home, spend some time contemplating that from a business perspective as well as a personal perspective, because my guess is you're all carrying around 12 ounces of water bottles that are just wearing you out. And it seems like nothing when you pick it up, but over time it sure gets heavy. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I can't wait to see you next week, 8 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Until then, have a wonderful day. What if you could have the practice of your dreams? What's holding you back? Imagine a life where you have everything you ever wanted.